How are you?
I'm doing very, very well. We were recently talking today about like our favorite day three, and we'll talk about obviously day one and day two a little bit. But day three, when you look at certain teams, like the way that Les Snead built the Rams that won a Super Bowl not long ago, because of the F them picks moment, much of that team, many of the starters on that team were third, fourth, fifth round picks, and sometimes even beyond. Some draft free agents, some people who came late day three, fifth, sixth, seventh round picks, even. And some of those players, two or three of those players, have now made a lot of money in those, second contracts. Was a big Jacoby Durant guy when he's coming out of South Carolina State. Joseph Noteboom. There have been players off that team that have done well. I think that I think both you and I agree that the main way that almost every really good team is built is the draft, and you can sprinkle in free agents. Free agents are there to add what I call accent pieces, right? And you can get a big splashy free agent, but that big splashy free agent is one player out of 53. The best teams are usually 70 to 80% of their two deep is players they've drafted and developed. And I know that obviously you come from or rooting for a team that comes very much from the draft and develop mindset. When you look at day three, are there particular day three players that you prize, that you're excited about, and who and why?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, everybody who knows me, everybody who's listened to me for half a second, within half a second, you already know about Barryon Brown, the incredible kick returner who I still think is a really good wide receiver. And I think he hasn't had a quarterback that really can hit him on a deep ball yet. And I think if he's in the right situation, he really could pop off. I like a lot of guys in this class in day three, like the Tyron Montgomerys of the world. Really nice footwork from him. Robert Henry Jr. I always say, like, man, when he's not the fastest person in the world, but when he cuts, he goes up like 17 feet at once, and it's like one of the most incredible things I love. We talked about Jamari Taylor a little bit. Love his contact balance. Players like that. Corners, we've talked about it a lot with Devon Marshall. Just all of those guys, honestly. A bunch of FCS guys, a bunch of D2 guys, but even guys who we don't even recognize as much in the regular D1 as well.
Yep. I think that the magic of hitting consistently, especially with smaller, quote unquote, smaller school players, hitting consistently with players day three and hitting consistently with players that maybe aren't playing in the SEC or the Pac 2+ or the ACC or the Big 17 or whatever it is now, hitting on players that aren't maybe household names comes down to two things. One, realizing what actually makes a player effective, right? And the old phrase that scouts started throwing around about 20, 25 years ago was, how does he win, right? How does he do it? How is he getting there? You and I talked recently about Antonio Brown, a guy that played in the MAC, played with Dan Lefevre, came in at 5'10" and an eighth, right? Ran a 4.57, weighed 179 pounds with a 33-inch vertical. I mean, like all of his testing numbers, height, weight, speed, everything was just from average to below average for the position. But you looked at his production at Central Michigan with it. You talked about Barryon Brown's situation. He would have killed to play with a guy like Doug Musmeyer. No offense to Dan Lefevre, but there's never a quarterback that Barryon Brown's played with who was Dan Lefevre. He hasn't played with Dan Lefevre, right? He hasn't played with that. And to his credit, Dan Lefevre, got drafted, I think, in the 6th round by the Colts, mostly due, in my mind, to Antonio Brown. But you saw in Antonio Brown, one is a person who was say what else you want. We can say a lot about it, Antonio, but he was a relentless competitor, right? Tough, very physically and mentally tough. And made his initial impact on special teams. A terrific return player, and of course the famous "This is Sparta" jump kick is sort of where a lot of people first began to notice him. But he was a really good player before that on special teams, and was initially stacked, behind Hines Ward, stacked behind Mike Wallace, stacked behind Emmanuel Sanders on the depth chart, and was steadily climbing. Right, he eventually. A couple of years later, he's the number one guy, even though all those players he mentioned ahead of him were more highly regarded players, though not a single one of them was a first rounder, right? A couple of third rounders and a second. I think Wallace was a second rounder, but early second, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. But a third, I believe, in Emmanuel Sanders, and another third in Hines Ward, I believe. Or Hart's might have even been a fourth. But that's because no one knew what Hines Ward was coming out. He was a quarterback. He was a running back. He was a wide receiver. He passed for 455 yards in the Outback Bowl. I don't know if you know that Hines Ward, I think, still holds the Outback Bowl passing record, 455 yards. So Hines Ward was a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But that's not what we're talking about. We're not going down memory lane with Bill Carroll. We're talking about this particular draft class, which is exciting to me. I really like this class, particularly at really all but two positions. It's easy to name the positions I'm not super excited about than the ones that I am. But who are some of your other favorite day 3 guys and why?
Yeah, I mean, like, it really just depends on who you have in day 3, right? It's like there's so many guys like right on that range, I feel like, as well. Defensively, I really like a Chris McClellan. I think he's got nice upside as a pass rusher. I think he's going to be nice at interior level. I'm still trying to figure out exactly who my edge is. I like an Anthony Lucas, but he might go a tad bit higher. Corner, we already said Devon Marshall. I like Genesis Smith a lot when he was a day 3 guy. Now he's probably a day 2 guy. That's kind of the way it works, right? It's like early on in the process, you think, man, I love this guy in day 3. And then all of a sudden he's a day 2 guy. And you're like, well, I still love him. Just a little bit less.
Right.
You can name a billion wide receivers, though.
Yeah, that's exactly the same thing. There's so much depth at wide receiver. There's so much depth at tight end, right? There's going to be several day 3 tight ends that turn into starters, or at least guys that contribute. They play, close to half the snaps, either because the team plays a lot of 12 personnel where you've got 2 tight ends, or because they can do enough that they can play a little bit of receiver or a little bit of fullback or things like that. I think that this corner class is really, really good and really, really deep. And I think there's going to be guys that are day 3 corners who, whether it be guys that show they can play, in big nickel, line up over the slot, or play a little bit of safety or things like that. Just as some of the guys that were tackles in college will end up being kicked inside, some of the guys that were corners in college will end up being kicked inside some of them will become spurs, or like a guy like Julian Neal might end up being an outside corner, boundary corner. Or I'll get you somebody saying, we look at this guy and we see a star, a spur, monster. Like, there's all these terms that you can use to describe this hybrid player. And because of his, height, weight, speed, and because of his tackling ability, and because of his toughness, a guy like Julian Neal can end up being one of those guys that's a move around piece in the secondary. Though he's probably not day 3. We'll see. We'll see. He's probably day 2, but we'll see.
He's building steam.
Right. Exactly. There's a lot of guys that will make it, though, to the third day, who will be good players. And we always play that game, right? The best still available. And it usually includes guys that we thought would go earlier. So there'll be some guys we thought will go later who will, like if Tanner Koziel goes day 2, I won't be shocked. The buzz on him is definitely, talking about maybe trending upward, but I have an early day 3 grade. I think he goes, early to mid 4th round, but I wouldn't be shocked if he goes earlier. He's got enough size. He's a good enough blocker for nowadays, right? It's funny. I was talking to my friend Mark Chisholm, who I don't know if you've talked to before, but we were reminiscing about one of the first teams to use a fair amount of 12 personnel was the mid 70s Cowboys. And they had a smaller, really mobile, great catcher of the football in Gene Fugate, who never became a terrific blocker by those standards of that era. He's a fine blocker by today's standards. But by the standards of the 70s, he was not a great blocker. And eventually, they moved on from him because he never quite mastered becoming a really effective run blocker in the run, or really even okay in pass protection, but not as good as a run blocker. And then in Billy Joe Dupree, they had a guy who's more of a do-everything guy. And really, though it took him a little while to build up, he actually could really run. One year, he averaged 16.2 yards per reception from the tight end spot, which, I mean, we're talking about a guy who has almost like a Gronkowski kind of skill set, not quite as tall, but terrific blocker and could work his way down the field, break tackles. That's not why you came here. But there's players like both those players, like Gene Fugate, right? Like Justin Jolie. And there's guys like Tanner Koziel who can do both. which I mentioned Billy Joe Dupree. I really am interested also. You mentioned your boy Zune, right? Trey Zune.
Yeah.
Is he a day 3 guy? If so, I think he could have a really solid 7, 8, 9, 10, maybe 10 plus year career as an NFL player. It just comes down to, like I said, does he go? Does he still go in the 3rd day? Because a lot of players will. Go ahead.
I was gonna say Bo Stevens as well. I mean, like
There
a
we
little
go.
less than Trey Zoom, because Trey Zoom's just the versatility is insane.
Right.
Like he's a definition of what you'd want as like a 6-man offensive lineman. He honestly reminds me of like a supercharged Patrick McCarry, like where he could just do a lot of everything, and he's probably not a master of anything, but like he could just spot start for you in the 6th lineman spot, like anywhere, and those are so valuable for teams. People never talk about that, but it's like one of the most valuable positions on a football field.
Right. Agreed. So let me just say this, and we'll. If you had to find, say, one 3rd rounder for your team, your particular team, and you had to pick one at, each position. You've named a couple. Who are your all 3rd day projecting? We're projecting, obviously. Who are your all 3rd day guys for
the Ravens?
For that.
So are we saying all day 3 or all round 3? Because you said
guys that we think are day 3. Now, once again, some of these guys may go earlier.
Mm-hmm. So I pop up my list real quick, actually.
Go ahead, pop up your list. It's an open book test.
I love it. I love it. Let me go back to this. But yeah, I mean, like, there's a lot of guys. I mean, while I'm going, I've talked about him a lot. Bo Stevens just feels like a guy that the Ravens would take and then develop him into like an 8-year starter who's probably just an average starter at best. But like when you're picking in day 3, that's what you look for. You're not looking for superstars all the time. And like I think he would just be like a solid guard that they could create and they could build a little bit. They kind of did the same thing last year with like a Carson Vincent in a different position. But it's like a guy that like you see something, you can mold with it, and like you're just interested to see where it goes. Right. In terms of interior D-line, I kind of talked about him a little bit earlier. I like Chris McClellan. Yes. I think there's not a lot of pass rush juice from this D-tackle group in general. There's some. You have to look for it, but it is out there. I think it's more of a quality nose tackle class than it is anything else. So, like, you get into your Rashawn Bennies, you get into your Chris McClellans. I like Albert Regis still a bit as well. So, if I had to choose between those ones, probably Chris McClellan for me. Corner, we talked about Devon Marshall a lot. I like him a lot. I know Prysock is one of Matt, my co-host's favorites.
That's Feason's Prysock, yeah.
Yeah, he's a big Prysock guy. Yeah. I like a Josh Moten. He'd be interesting to me as well. Safety was Genesis Smith. I'm kind of still trying to figure out who my day 3 safety is now because all the day 3 safeties I used to like have started to move up. I like a Cole Wisenowski a little bit. He's interesting. Yeah. Linebackers, I mean, my 2 guys in this class, you could name almost any linebacker. They probably would have been day 2 years ago. But, like, in terms of linebackers, I love Red Murdoch. I think Red Murdoch's just such a field general, like such a natural linebacker that's not really going to impress you with much, but you watch him and then you're just like, oh, that's literally everything I want out of a Mike. Like, I don't need anything else. Like, I just watched Red Murdoch. I already know what I have. I already know what I want. And then I think the other side of that is out of the Raging Cajuns, Jaden Duggar. Jaden Duggar is a similar idea that he just flies around on tape, man. Yeah. I love him to death. I think he'll be a really good special teamer at bare minimum in the league. I think that's another thing you have to look for when you're looking at day 3 guys, like who's going to be a willing special teamer, who's going to be willing to like actually earn the reps, because you could be a great running back. We saw with Keaton Mitchell last year, the Ravens didn't really like his special teams ability, even though Keaton Mitchell is this freaking firecracker on offense, and I'm sure he's going to turn into something. But at the same time, it's like when teams don't value your special teams, it gets a little bit different. Running back wise, I've been a big Chris Henry Jr. guy. I just think when he cuts, it's so interesting. He's not the fastest guy in the world, but he has really good vision. And when he cuts, he goes like 6 feet up the air. I know I said that earlier. Le'Veon Moss is interesting. He's not my cup of tea per se because he's just been injured so many freaking times. But like in terms of that, tight ends, you took the ones out of my mouth that I was going to talk about. I kind of like a Cuevas and a DJ Rogers as well. I think those guys are interesting. And then if I had to say, I mean, offensive tackle, I'm still intrigued by the physical prospect that is Markel Bell. There's a lot of things you have to work on, and there's a lot that you have to mold. But that's kind of what you want in day 3, right? It's like the guy you hope doesn't see the field unless a disaster happens. And then if he sees the field, hopefully you develop him in time to see it.
Yeah. I like a lot of those same guys. I like both Kalen Black and Jane Knott. Curtis Allen, I think we both talked about briefly.
Oh, yeah.
Allen's probably going to go undrafted. I don't know if that's. I don't think he should, but he probably will. If we're casting around for like a day 3 quarterback who might actually be something, if he makes it a day 3, I could see Drew Aller actually turning into a starter. He has a lot to work on, but he's very self-aware, and he's got a lot of the tools that some of the guys that we drafted ahead of him, frankly, don't have. He's got some of the elements that made Jay Cutler with both good and bad. He's got some of the elements that make Kerry Collins, though he's more athletic. He's got some of the elements. I mean, I'm not going to compare anybody to Josh Allen because it's not fair, but you can see some of the same kinds of qualities. Very competitive, also sometimes a little reckless, both with his body and with the football.
God-awful footwork.
Yes, and which eventually got cleaned up to some extent, but yes,
Yeah.
God-awful footwork. Struggling to read disguised coverage, which early in his career was a real. I mean, it's a challenge for a lot of young quarterbacks.
I wish I had the play on me because it cracks me up. There's this play he specifically has, and I wish I just like would have screen recorded. I never did. I don't even know how he threw the ball even close to accurately. Like, it made no sense to me whatsoever. His back foot was literally behind his front foot.
Oh yeah.
And it was like literally like sideways, and he chucked the ball with his back foot forward and his other foot sideways. Right. And he was off by like 4 yards, but I couldn't even believe it was that close. Like, I was like, this is going to be like the worst duck I've ever seen. And like, that's just pure arm talent. Like, you can't teach that.
Right.
Just,
and that's
building.
That's the thing about Aller. He has some of that. He has some of the stuff that you cannot teach. We could spend all day, as you said earlier, on the wide receivers, but I'm going to mention a guy that was not at the combine, but I really believe should have been there. Daniel Sopkowitz from Southern Illinois University, SIU Carbondale. I mean, the cheap, easy comparisons, Adam Thielen, right? Thielen, of course, from a Division II school and white. But more than just being from a non-FBS school and more than just being Caucasian, he really is a guy who has really good technique, knows how to use his body to ward off defenders, can do it without looking like he's committing offensive pass interference, which is important, because very often the flag comes out when you look like you're doing something, whether you're doing it or not. Really good hands, really good, catches the ball out away from his frame, can reach behind him. Like he can make some sort of highlight reel catches. The big question obviously be his actual athletic testing, which we don't know as of yet. He didn't get invited to the combine. You have to wait for his pro day. But I really like him as a player, and I think he has a chance to be at least a wide receiver 3 in the NFL for many years. I have a little heart or whatever you'll say for him. There is a running back who, once again, may or may not even be drafted, but I have a top 25 grade on him at running back. And Mr. Ronnie Hammond from Sacramento State. Sacramento State obviously helped to produce, I guess, since, we'll give some credit to Arizona State, but I personally give most of the credit, most, not all, but most of the credit to the Cam Scatteraboo experience, to what he did most of his career, right? He spent 1 year at Arizona State, but the rest of his career was spent at Sacramento State. And he's another one of those backs, got some explosiveness, can catch the ball. I think he's a made-to-order third-down back from UVA, another transfer. But that's another guy I think is going to hang around the NFL for several years as most likely, a rotational change-of-pace third-down kind of back. And then in terms of, offensive linemen, Jennings Dunker, if he makes it to day 3, which good chance he won't, I think he goes day 2. But if he does, he's a huge steal to me. The kid from Duke,
Brian Parker.
Thank you. I think Brian Parker does make it to day 3, but probably early day 3. That's a guy I think is going to end up turning himself to an NFL starter.
Do you have him? Yep.
Do
you have him as a center? I'm just curious.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, by that I mean I think he ends up playing initially as a guy that plays, throughout the interior until he becomes a starter. But I think his starting position probably is center when he becomes a starter. And then another player that I think is going to go day 3 and I think has a chance to be not only a starter, but maybe even a guy that goes to a couple Pro Bowls is Landon Robinson from the United States Naval Academy in beautiful Annapolis. And I know the common cheap, easy comparison people start throwing out on him is, Aaron Donald. But no, don't do that, people. He's not that.
Pat Ricard.
Yes, well, he might be Pat. He actually might be Pat Ricard, but he's 291 pounds. He's explosive. He's powerful. He's quick. He's disruptive. I hope he doesn't end up getting just stuck playing fullback, though. I think you're going to miss out on something. You don't just let him give you some production as a D tackle. Who are some of the other guys you want to mention before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, Eli Heidenreich as well. Going on the Navy group. Yeah, I think he's the definition of a guy who's just going to see a field because he could block so dang well, and people don't remember that being important. I said it a few years ago. I literally remember watching his film, not Eli, but Tylan Wallace, and I was said, "Yep, Baltimore Ravens are going to be really interested in that guy."
Correct.
Just because of the blocking alone. They're not even paying attention to any route he's running whatsoever. They're just paying attention to what he's doing and blocking. I think he's one of those guys where a bunch of physical teams are going to look at him and be like, that's interesting. And whether they use him at running back, wide receiver, a bunch of gadgets, we'll see. That's a fun one. That's most of my main names, at least from the ones that I know are day 3. I like Amaj Reed Adams a lot. I think that the rest of Texas A&M gets kind of the steals, and everybody talks about Trey Zoom because of versatility. Everybody talks about Crownover because he's so big, and everybody talks about Basantes because obviously Basantes is a freaking freak of nature guard. But a lot of people lose Armaj Reed Adams in the middle of it, and I think he's a really solid guard at the next level. Trying to think off the top of my head if there's anybody else that I feel like I'm missing. Aiden Fisher is really nice. He's just another one of those classic linebackers that really won't.
Yeah.
Another guy, actually, I got one. And I feel like he's gotten lost in the process, and I don't really get it. Is because he started way, when I remember earlier in the draft process, probably at the start, I wouldn't say the start of the offseason, but right as the playoffs were starting, when you would do mock drafts, you'd see Caleb Earl-Zor. And then all of a sudden, he's just a 5th rounder for some reason. It's what? Okay. Yeah. I think he's a really interesting piece. I mean, I like I said, wide receivers and linebackers, I could pretty much name all of the 20 people in the class, and I'd feel pretty good about it. Right. One of those guys is going to make an impact. And another thing, to your point on what you were bringing up with tight ends, I already brought my tight end names. But what people forget is most of the time, tight end's the biggest crapshoot in the world. It's the best tight ends almost typically always come out of the later rounds. Right. It's not something where you see and you're starting to see it a little bit more lately. You're starting to see instant impacts from your round 1 guys. But there's time periods you can go back in time where we used to always joke about it with the Ravens. The second tight end was always better. You drafted 2 and the second one was always better. And that's the thing is there's always some tight end in the 5th rounds that we're probably not even talking about right now that's going to pop off, and then we're all going to look back and be well, that was different. Right.
And I'm going to throw, I like other things you said. I'm going to throw also one of my favorite day 3 corners. Once again, assuming he makes it day 3, but I think Hezekiah Masses gets sort of lost in the sauce, though he shouldn't. He is a tremendous ball hawk. He's really smart. And some people thought he was a zone-only guy, but he tested very well, actually, at the Combine. So I think he can play both man and zone at a high level. But his IQ, and I'll mention one other, probably a guy who projects to corner is Chandler Rivers from Duke. Another guy with a really high football IQ and explosive and smart and tough. And so while guys like D'Angelo Ponce and Keontae Scott are guys that will go in the top 50 picks, if you're picking 50 or 60 picks later, you want a somewhat similar player. A guy like Chandler Rivers gives you some of those same things. Maybe not quite as explosive, but very similar. And very productive, very smart. And, I'm a huge Hezekiah Masses guy. I think he's going to end up being a really, really good football player. And, Cal becoming the new DBU on the down low a little bit. Those are some of the guys I like.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, it's just such a fun day 3 class. Like we like the last time we tried to do a combine episode, we spent half the episode talking about the guys who missed the combine. That's a sign that one thing, this draft class is deep, and there are going to be a bunch of guys. It's a floor raising class, as Matt likes to say all the time. It's a floor raising class. It's not a ceiling raising class, and your floor is just as important. You're going to have a ton of players that are going to be really solid starters. I know everybody gets enamored with Pro Bowls and All Pros and all of that. Right. But, hey, there's also 22 positions on a football field that are all being played. And if you have solid starters at the positions you don't have stars, hey, that's what wins championships.
Got it. Before we close out, do you think free agency – I mean, we both talk about free agency, and I try to tell people to try to see it all together as a life cycle piece, right? How the draft and free agency should, in air quotes at least, work together in that you are trying to find impact and depth, and where you can't find, where if say the free agency doesn't have one of those things, then you're finding the other thing, in the draft, or vice versa, right? If you don't see a lot of impact at one position in the draft, then you're looking for a free agency, and then vice versa. But you should be approaching those things holistically. What do you think about free agency and where we are now in the free agency cycle?
Yeah, I mean, so it's always the general rule of thumb. The moment the first wave of free agency happens, those first 20 guys you can almost guarantee are all going to get somewhat overpaid. I don't like to use the word overpaid, but like overpaid in terms of value.
Right.
Like almost every contract at some point will age somewhat poorly. As long as you get the value out of it right away, then who cares? It's like I was saying earlier with Tyler Linderbaum. It's like, yeah, you overpaid the market by a ton.
Correct.
You reset that market. You went from 19 million to 27 million a year. But at the same time, you have $100 million to spend. Like, what else are you going to do with it besides overspend on something? At least you know you get the right piece. At least you know you don't have to worry about center. And like, do I think anyone's going to touch that contract for a while? Because I keep seeing people being like, but the next guy will reset it. I don't think that's going to happen for a minute. I'm going to be honest.
Not for the next couple of years. I agree. I think he holds the belt for a couple of years. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, like at the same time, like what else are you spending it on? And I like to think of it in like, there are 4 acts to an off season essentially. So your first act is the first week of free agency where everybody gets excited. I remember I used to fake like I was sick so I could stay home from school and I could go watch ESPN and I'd watch all the names and where they going, who's going where. And it was just fun. It's not quite the level of like an NBA is with it, but it's still like ecstatically fun. But that's where you're going to see most of the overpays happen. You're going to see people reach a little bit for need, but it's kind of like the draft, right? Like you grab players who are the best available at the best price.
Right.
And your team did it really well with Jaquan Brisker. I still can't believe you guys stole that one. I still can't believe Nashon Wright signed for $4 million. But that one blows my mind. But exactly, like those are the other things. And then you have phase 2, which is your draft. And then that's when you kind of fill in your needs. Then your phase 3 is all of the June 1st cuts that didn't get signed, all the veterans who were smart enough to be like, this ain't my first rodeo. I know you're going to need me after the draft, and you're going to have to pay a little bit more to get me, versus the $4 million contract I was getting yesterday is now $7 million today.
Right.
And then that's like the third wave. You typically see a lot of teams like the Ravens, especially involved in that time period. A lot of the teams that have been routinely successful tend to like wait for some of those guys to like become available. Those typically become some of your locker room vets as well. Right. Not necessarily always the most skilled guys in the world, typically more aging assets, but at the same time, like guys who help your young guys start to develop right after the draft. They're basically the mentors you bring in. And then your fourth group is actually a little bit after the off season, because it's during preseason when everybody's cut down to 53, and you see what you could steal from other teams because of position log jams.
Right. That was extremely well explained, and it was well done, sir. And before we close out, I'm going to mention that because the CFL and UFL do exist, there are players maybe just, the top 3 to 7% in those two leagues, that as their seasons wind down, you will see, pro player personnel people don't just watch, though they watch mostly NFL players, they're also watching players to a lesser extent in leagues like indoor football leagues, but they are watching Arena League. They are watching Canada, and they're definitely watching the UFL. You will see, Brandon Aubrey, right? We see impact occasionally come up from places like the UFL, and they'll happen again this year. Just a sprinkling of players, but some of those players will come in and contribute. So that's part of it, right? So you've got the draft. You've got, as you mentioned, people you pick up from cut downs. You've got the traditional free agents that have already hit the market, guys that will be cut based on the draft. Also later, those late cuts, and even guys who are like semi-retired right now. They haven't put in their paperwork, but maybe they weren't on a team last year. Maybe come back from injury. Maybe just nobody signed them, and now they're in a better space or whatever, or a log jam, as you mentioned, cleared up, maybe due to retirement or injury, and now Cam Newton or whatever, maybe not Cam, but somebody who's still working out, still staying in shape. We joked about Randall Cobb earlier, right? Somebody might get the call who maybe didn't play last year, but that's I agree that's sort of the panoply.
Before I let you go, Bill, you had any free agent signings that you liked?
There's several that I like, and you mentioned Brisker and Ashawn Wright. I'm just like, why didn't we get him too? We could have used Ashawn Wright also. I think that was a good pickup. The most controversial one, obviously, is you guys getting Trey Hendrickson, but I like it. I like it's a terrific fit. While he's not quite the run defender that Max Crosby was, he's, even if you just use him as a designated pass rusher, he's going to either get double-digit sacks or flirt with double-digit sacks. And if he plays full-time, he's going to get, and stays healthy, he's going to get double-digit sacks. And you already had a good defense. I think that
adding Jalen Hawkins in there too.
Yeah, and Jalen Hawkins, speaking of Cal, right? The new DBU Cal, another Cal guy. I also really like some of the things that Detroit's doing. And obviously people are going to, say things about moving on from some players they moved on from, but I think they did a good job. In Pacheco, you're getting a sort of a faster version of, he's not just he's a power back, right? He's a straight line power back, but he's a straight line power back who can run. He's a 4-4-1 guy. He can, once he breaks through that second line of the defense, he can take it all to the house. That's different from what you had before with the new Knuckles / Sonic combination they have there. I think they understand free agency fairly well in Detroit. I will not be surprised if Detroit is a Super Bowl team. Once again, they can stay healthy on defense, which has been a big problem for them recently. But if they can stay healthy on defense, that's a team I think has a shot to make the Super Bowl.
I think a fun one, and they overspent obviously, but they had to at the same time. They needed to add talent. Is the Titans? I thought the Titans had a really fun free agency where it's Wan'Dale Robinson. I think this is why I always say you should always draft a wide receiver regardless
every year,
because they are just $1 billion in free agency now. So obviously that's a huge contract for a guy who's hit above 700 once. But you know what? Regardless of the case, he's a fun receiver, and it's way better than what they had in the room. And they need to give Cam Ward all the help he can get. I really love Jonathan Franklin Myers. I think he's one of the most under-heralded and underappreciated football players in the league. Agreed. He never gets the respect he deserves. I'm glad he finally got a nice bag where it shows his importance.
Another one of Les Snead's day 3 guys, right? A late draft pick that panned out. Yeah.
And it'll be a nice pickup for them too. That D line's all of a sudden a little bit more interesting each and every day. Alontae Taylor and Cordell Flott, that's fun. Obviously you lose L'Jarius Sneed because you cut him because you're just all right, well now I'm going into corner groups. I found what I wanted. And then they added a punter and a kicker. I think they overpaid Daniel Bellinger a little bit, but hey, man, add pieces. I thought they were going to bring back Chig, to be honest. Blows my mind they didn't, to be honest.
I think they decided they want more of a full-service tight end. Yeah, and that's what Bellinger is. He's going to help their running game and, frankly, their pass protection. he's going to be kept in sometimes to help. But he's a good enough pass receiver. But he's, like I said, he's what, almost 4 inches taller, I think, than Chig. I think Chig was right at 6'2", or maybe just under. I think he was just under. I think he was like 6'1 3/4. So he was one of the one of the shortest tight ends in the league. No, he wasn't even 6'1". I think he was 6 feet and 7/8. So he was the shortest starting tight end in the league. And I think he was 238 or something like that. So you're talking about a guy who's strong physically, but just small for a tight end. And in Bellinger, a guy who's legit, 256 pounds, and I think came in at 6'5 1/4 or something like that. Very different body type. But
another one I really liked is getting Devin Lloyd for the Panthers.
That's a great sign. Yeah.
I can't believe it was $15 million a year. I didn't think he was gonna break the market, but I thought he was gonna get close to it. I thought he was gonna get like $18 million a year. And then for him to be $15 million a year, like I think he was only like $1.5 million above like Leo Chenal or something like that.
Right.
Which is freaking crazy in my opinion. Devin Lloyd's a stud. And then they overpaid Jalen Phillips obviously quite a bit. But you know what? Hey, if you're gonna underpay someone, at least you overpaid somebody else. That evens out.
Right. No, I agree with all those.
I like what the Saints did a lot too. Travis Achan, who we just figured that one out, at least from my end. I just figured out that it's Achan. But adding David Edwards too, really nice pickup. David Edwards is a really underrated player in this league as well. And I really thought like both those moves were really nice for them.
Right.
I was surprised. It's like feels like one of the first times the Saints actually have money to spend. Maybe we hope. Or they probably
in a while. Yeah, that's right.
Or they probably added 14 void years that we don't know about yet. But we'll see.
Yeah, those are all. I think all of those players and locations, landing spots you mentioned are good ones. And I mean that's also the other important thing is like, and I guess we have to mention. Future Hall of Famer, at least in my opinion, Michael Lynn Evans, right? A guy that at one point some people thought would, play out his entire career as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. And I could certainly say that I think even if he ends up being a wide receiver, which he may not, he may still be a wide receiver 1, or 1A or whatever term we use. I think that he just changes the way that team feels about itself and the way it's seen. And he's a, consummate pro and one of the most consistently productive wide receivers in the history of the league. In fact, by numbers, I guess the most consistently productive receiver in the history of the NFL. He broke a Jerry Rice record. When you break a Jerry Rice record, you're doing something. I think that that's an important piece. I think that he represents a team that sees itself differently. The Raiders we could do a whole show on just what the Raiders did. The Raiders did a lot in free agency, and then obviously the trade that didn't happen, but which everyone talked about. But I don't feel the need to rehash that. But they really did a lot in free agency. They helped build that team. I mean, obviously we talked about Linderbaum. They are trying to turn around the way the world sees that team, and I think they've done that fairly effectively. Jacksonville, I think, has done a really good job. And though they did lose at least one, fairly important, maybe more than one fairly important piece, I think they mostly.
And Lloyd.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they mostly came out. I mean, no one's unscathed, but I think they mostly came out okay. Before we close out for this show, is there either a particular player landing spot or a move that you wanted to highlight? Either ones you did or did not like.
I thought it was really interesting. This is more like a negative aspect I get. Mm-hmm. The Broncos didn't really add anyone outside of the Broncos.
Good point.
And like they kind of sat still, which I thought was really intriguing. Because I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, they just got off the Russell Wilson contract. So I thought they were going to spin a little bit.
Yeah, right.
Instead, they stood pat. They paid some of their own. I was really surprised they brought freaking Singleton back, but to each their own. Other ones that's fun. Obviously, John Harbaugh brought all of his friends.
That's not really surprising, is it?
No. I expect. Well, I mean, Jordan Stout was a little surprising me. I'm not gonna lie to you. I thought we'd pay our punter. I thought we'd keep our punter somehow. So that one was a little shocking. But like the rest of them, I would have figured. And then like I think the Chiefs did some fun stuff adding K9.
Yep.
That'll be a nice, interesting dynamic
Yep.
to them. I said it earlier
Yep.
and earlier. I never saw a world where they would have taken Jeremiah 11-9, and now this like reinforces my point. And I think he'll be a really fun fit for them too. It just adds a new dynamic to the offense. I'm trying to think of another one off the top of my head. I can't believe Alec Pierce almost makes $30 million a year now. That's pretty cool. Good for him.
Right, and now we'll find out if he can be a wide receiver one, because he's never. I mean, he was sort of a one. Even in college, he was kind of a 1B.
Mm-hmm. The Colts spent some money, man. They spent some money on their own. They love their guys. They might as well take that trademark from John Harbaugh himself.
Yeah,
Commanders had a really fun.
But we managed to pry Michael Pittman Jr. From them, obviously.
Yeah, you guys have had a good offseason too. Like, I mean, in terms of free agency. Yeah, I mean, you guys keep getting older, which is a little scary.
Yeah.
I think, like, it was so interesting. I always say this because I'm a basketball head at the same time. Like, you guys in the Heat are, like, the exact same team to me. It's like Heat culture, Steelers culture. It's like you keep taking all of these middle steps to stand still. And eventually, like, I just want you to take the step backwards so you can build. But like at the same time, you keep getting good players in the middle, so it's like you're in purgatory. And maybe
exactly right.
With the new staff, but
we are the myth of Sisyphus in football form. I'm going to throw out an underrated signing. Going back to the Chiefs, mark my words. I think Kyrus Tonga, who will end up being. Now, just because, he's a 340-something pound human being, he's not going to play every snap. But I think on the 41% or whatever the snaps he plays, he's going to make a real impact. I think he's going to collapse some pockets, and he's going to make it difficult for people to run the football. And look at the teams in there, just staying in the West, right? The Raiders want to run the football. That's part of why they went out and got the players they got, right? Added the players. They want to run the football more and better. Clearly, I mean, there's a Harbaugh who's coaching the Chargers. Yeah. They want to run the football, right? Denver has from literally the time they came into the AFL, they've run the football. They've been a good running team. All the teams though we think of it as like a wide open passing conference division, the AFC West, it's actually a really good running division, with the exception of the Chiefs. And maybe the Chiefs might actually run the football this year. Now that they went out and got Kenneth Walker, and they brought back Eric Bieniemy. That, I think, is also one of the secrets to them unlocking their running game.
I think another underrated one. I would not feel well if I didn't mention it. And I know their fan base keeps complaining about it because they expected to add 100 stars in the world, like they always do, like the stars on their helmet. But I really like Jalen Thompson. I really, really like Jalen Thompson as a player. I think he's one of those guys like John Franklin Myers where people don't ever give him enough credit for how much impact he does have. Him and Budda Baker is like one of the best safety tandems in the league half the years that they've played together. And like he is such an underrated player. I think he'll tremendously help that secondary out. I know that they wanted to add a Trey Hendrickson. They wanted to add a Max Crosby. They wanted to add something. But, I mean, man, Jalen Thompson's not a bad consolation prize. I think he's a really good safety still in this league. He's a nice one. Malik Willis and Tua, all the quarterback movement. That's fun.
Yep.
Kyler Murray to the Vikings will be weird.
Yep.
But, I mean, hey, man, get weird with
it. It's a one-year prove-it deal. So either he's back in the marketplace next year and getting a big money contract, or he's a guy who's scrambling around to hang around in the league if this doesn't work out for him, or if he loses the quarterback competition, because apparently it's going to be a quote unquote open competition, which we hear a lot, but I think this time they actually mean it. We'll see how that pans out. Before you go, Jordan, tell people where they can find your work, what you're up to, and where to follow you.
Yeah, you can find me a Jordan Sport guy, always live, sometimes with Bill, sometimes with Jay and Matt, do a draft nerd, sometimes with draft professors. I just run around. If you're interested in any podcast or want somebody on your show to rant about day 3 picks or somebody real deep, I'm trying to eventually, I haven't even told Bill this yet. I think I'm actually going to, for the first time in my mock drafting life, attempt a 7-rounder for
There
all
we go.
teams. It's going to be a little scary, and I'm kind of excited to do it. But you can find all my information, Jordan Sport Guy on Twitter. I post all of the combine spreadsheets, all of the all-star spreadsheets. So like you could check all the measurements, compare them for yourselves, see who you want to make as comps, see what you want to see for athletic testing numbers. I'm always posting about the draft or NFL. Every once in a while you'll see a Spurs comment in there. Every once in a while you'll see me rant about how Gunnar Henderson's not on the USA starting team, but
Right.
that's a rant for a different day.
All right, there we go. And you can see my top 25 running backs. I've already dropped my top 25 interior offensive linemen and my top 25 linebackers. My top 25 running backs are about to drop, and that'll be followed by my top 25 tackles, defensive tackles, after that. But also, obviously, I do work for Zinni62 Media, and I'll be dropping some other video content this weekend for Zinni62 Media. So you find both Team MBS as well as Zinni62 Media. And last but not least, on X, formerly Twitter, at 11, the word, not the number, at 11 Bravo 138, the number, not the word. So that's at 11 Bravo 138. Once again, it is always a pleasure, an honor, and a privilege, and we will do this again soon. And please like and subscribe.
Absolutely.
Yes.